here and said, like, we've got a few that balanced it out. So, how's everybody doing tonight? No, you're good. You're good. You can sit right there. So, hey, sorry we canceled it up last week. I had something I had to take care of. I think for the final 2 weeks, we're going to go actual fully virtual because I know we're going to have a lot of people traveling this weekend. And so a week from today will definitely be online, and then we can meet back on that final week if y'all want to. So it's up to y'all. I'll put it out, and if y'all want to meet back. Well, let's go ahead and open up in prayer first, and then we'll get started. God, just want to say thanks. Thanks for marriage. Thanks for people who just want to take a step and get better in their relationships. You gave us marriage, and we thank you so much for that. God, as we move forward and we talk about parenting and stuff like that, God, I just pray that you lead, guide, and direct us, and open our eyes to see and our hearts to believe and our ears to hear the way that you would have us parent. Not what culture says, but what you say in your word. And we give you all the praise, glory, and honor in Jesus' name. Amen. Everybody caught up on your date nights? How many of you still going on date night? Nope. I got a couple. Yeah, we give you tools. I'm gonna keep encouraging you if you haven't gone on your date nights. Date night might be one of the most important things in a marriage. You used to date your spouse as life gets busy and continues on. You will never have enough time, but it might be the most important time that you make time for. And so I want to encourage everybody to continue to date your spouse. And as I've said over and over and over, we all have the same amount of time. What you choose to do with it is totally up to you, but I would ask this question: how invested are you in your marriage? Would you carve out a couple hours every week to date your spouse? And the answer to that should be absolutely. And so I want to encourage you, just pick right back up where you left off, and go out on a date night. Have some fun. I know in the world of COVID, it can be kind of quirky finding stuff to do. Be creative. Go on picnics. Go on a walk. Go do stuff, but the main part of that is spend time together. We left off, correct me if I'm wrong, did we talk about negativity? Where are we at in your books? Did we talk about recharging? It's called the crazy train. That's where I've got that we're at. Is that where we're at? Crazy train? Yeah, that's where I thought. All right, so we're still going down the list. We've basically got a couple more, and then we're going to jump into parenting. And I know I've had a lot of text messages and stuff about when are we getting into parenting. And parenting is one of the great stressors of a marriage. And so we're going to jump into that, but we're going to go ahead and continue on. We are in this section of your book that's called Crazy Train, and we've been talking about what the lie is, and then we're counteracting that with what the Bible says. The lie on the crazy train is my job is to make sure that everyone else is healthy. It's not your job. We said it at the very beginning. This is kind of the backside of that. Your job is to be a healthy you. Your job is to be a healthy you. Way back in the day, I took a course as a lifeguard, right? One of the first things that they teach you as a lifeguard is to protect yourself, because more lifeguards drown trying to help somebody else because that person will pull them under. And so they teach you how to protect yourself first. You can't help anybody else if you are unhealthy. You've heard the statement, the blind leading the blind. Your goal and your job and your relationship is to be the healthiest you. It's not your job to change them. And so for them to get healthy, for your family to be healthy, two positives equal a positive every time, right? One negative will bring down the relationship. So the goal is for you to be the best you that God created you to be. Your job is not to make sure everybody else is healthy. We use this in church. This is church speak a lot. If you continually pour out, right? If you take a pitcher, and I usually have this as an example. If you take a pitcher and it's full of water, right, and you start to pour it out, and you continuously pour it out, but you never refill it, what ends up happening? Runs dry, right? It's common sense, right? It runs dry. And then you become dehydrated. And then when you become dehydrated, you end up without water, you end up wilting away and eventually dying. Same concept is in a marriage. It's your job to continue to refill. It's your job to be healthy, because a healthy you and a healthy spouse will equal a healthy marriage every single time. It can't not be healthy. Luke 2:52, and Jesus increased in wisdom and in stature and in favor with God and man. He increased in wisdom. So even Jesus, right, Savior of the world, continued to increase in wisdom. He continued to move forward in his earthly relationships. So the 4 ways Jesus grew. How did Jesus grow? He grew in wisdom. So how can we grow in wisdom in our marriage? So if we're doing it as a Christ-like example, what are some ways we can grow in wisdom? Ask questions. Oh my goodness. Communicate with your spouse. Who'd have thunk? Right? We can ask questions. I'm going to tell you, ladies, men do not read minds. I know it's a shocker. We can't read minds. Same goes the other direction. Ask questions. Be constantly learning about your spouse. Be constantly discovering. That's the word I like to use, because learning always has a weird connotation to it. Discover your spouse. And as y'all continue to move forward together, look, your spouse is not going to be the same that they were 20 years ago. So for some of you younger couples, 20 years from now, they're going to evolve and they're going to continue to grow, hopefully. And to continue to do that with them, you want to continue to grow in wisdom. You want to continue to bring others around you. That's another way we can grow in wisdom. Surround yourself. Look, I'm going to say this. You don't need marriage advice from somebody who just got out of a divorce. Okay? You don't. You don't need that. What you need is, if you're going through a struggle, if you're going through a struggle individually or with your marriage or with your kids, who should you go and talk to? Somebody who's been through it, right? Who do you go to when you're sick? This isn't a trick question. Doctor, right? You go to a doctor. Well, if you're struggling in your marriage, you can go to counselors. You can go to small groups. You can surround yourself with people. You need somebody who's ahead of you in life that can give you godly, great advice. That is part of growing in wisdom. I want to encourage everybody, find somebody in your life. We would call that a mentor. Find a mentor in your life. I've got guys who have been married. Like, I get a lot of advice from my dad. My dad and mom have been married over 50 years, and I'll talk to my dad about a lot of things. And that's what it means when it says you grow in wisdom. What does stature mean? Rodney, what does stature mean? There's only like 20 of us. I'm going to call on people tonight. He grew in wisdom and stature. It's kind of your reputation, right? Yeah, it's kind of your reputation. You grow in stature. You grow in wisdom and you grow in stature. You become a spiritual leader of your house, man. That's what growing in stature. You become a spiritual leader. Well, how do you do that? Again, surround yourself with godly men. But the number one answer would be, ask yourself this question. What is a spiritual leader of a home? Somebody give me some examples. What would a spiritual leader of a home look like? What are some things a spiritual leader would do? He'd take his family to church. Would that be one? Right? Instead of looking for reasons not to go, he would get his family up and say, hey, we are going. Being a spiritual leader. What would a spiritual leader look like to a child in parenting? Praying with them. Reading the Bible with them. Go over Bible stories. I remember my parents growing up, there used to be this set of books. This is old school. But there used to be, and it was blue set of books, and it was called The Bible Story. And there was about 12 or 13. I see some of you nodding your head. There was 12 or 13, and we still got them somewhere. I think they're a collector series now. But I actually opened one the other day, and I'm like, man, these things are cheesy. But you know what? I knew most of my Bible stories, not even from Sunday school. I got it from my parents because they would sit every night and they would read us a Bible story. Being a spiritual leader of your home, growing in stature and in favor with God and man. What does that mean? What does growing in favor with God and man mean? Walking out your faith in your family, walking out your faith as a husband, walking out your faith as a wife, walking out your faith as a mother and a father, because you know who's watching you? They are. Your spouse is. Your kids are. Those around you at work are watching. Those around you at church are watching. Fair or not fair doesn't matter, but people are watching how you conduct yourself within your marriage. Are you uplifting to your spouse? Are you speaking words of affirmation about your spouse at work? Or are you trashing them? Are you speaking words of, are you honoring your spouse out in public? Or are you casting your eyes at somebody else? Are you making comments about the opposite sex that you shouldn't be? People are watching. So growing in stature and growing in favor with God and men is presenting yourself the same on a Tuesday as you would on a Sunday in church, right? It's creating boundaries. We've talked about boundaries, sticking to those boundaries, honoring your spouse even when your spouse isn't looking. What words would you use to describe your health right now? All right, 2020, I get it. Looks a little different. But let's be real. Let's talk 2020, right? Because I think a lot of people are like, well, you know, this is just an anomaly. Well, what if 2021 looks the same? Me and Gary were just talking about it. It don't look like 2021 going to look a lot different early in the year, does it? So what if it looks the same? And can I tell you something? 2021 may not have COVID. It's going to have something else. 2022, 2023, we got crazy elections, we got crazy pandemics, we got crazy world, we got crazy hurricanes, we got crazy natural disasters, we got crazy economies, right? Economies go up, economies go down. Pandemics come, pandemics go. If it's not COVID, it's going to be what? SARS, and if it's not SARS, it's going to be whatever other animal they eat overseas. I don't know. Whatever it is, there's always something coming. So let's talk about mental health. What word would you use to describe your health right now? And I know those online, you could chat it up. What would you say your mental health coming out of 2020 is? Not even within your marriage, what would you say? How many of you would say, I'm tired? Yeah, a couple of you. What are some other words that would describe mental health in 2020? Right now. Afraid? Mad? Bad? I can't hear, dude. Sad. I'm like, I got the ad part. I was going to just keep playing Jeopardy there until I got it. Sad, right? There's a lot of people. What else? There's a lot of people dying in 2020. And it's holiday season right now. That can create tension. We're going to talk about that a little bit. Did you know more people die around the holidays than at any other time of the year? Did you know that there's more suicides around the holidays than any other time of the year? Did you know spouses who have lost a spouse actually die more around the holidays? And they really do believe that they die from what's called a broken heart. No, not at all. Because we're about to, because this is the side that says mental. Huh? Mental health is great. Why is that? Quit a job, started what he loved. There you go. What else would you say? 2020 right now. I've heard tired, I've heard sad, I've heard excited, new jobs, new opportunities. Grateful. Why are you grateful? Extra time that you've gotten with your family. Lockdowns, I mean, you got all the time you want with your family, right? It's all temporary. It is. It's all going to go away. One way or the other. It's all going to go away. Good job, Jackson. That's cool. Yeah. Way to use your spokesperson. All right, so we're talking about, what would you say your physical condition is coming out of 2020? We've talked about mental conditions. What about physical conditions? Yeah, a little older. A little older, for those online, a little fatter. I mean, isolation and lockdowns probably don't help that a lot. I ate more Krispy Kreme donuts this morning than most people eat in a year. Right? We've binge eaten, right? People, they do what when they get stressed? Eat. It's natural, right? Another side of it is you could go to a gym. That's a way to relieve stress. Some people run, not me. Some go to the gym at 4:30. Who? Oh, look at y'all. There you go. Them things open at 4:30? You do too? What gym you go to? Strong? What gym you go to? Strong? I go to Strong. I'm a member of Strong. Never seen any of y'all. I think y'all all lying. Or I'm not there ever. But I'm a member. I'm a member. I have the family plan. I show up about once a quarter, whether I need to or not. So here's why we ask this question. What are you doing to make yourself healthy? What are you doing to relieve stress? What are you doing because this is what has been proven. A healthy body allows for a healthy mind. So what do you do for a stress reliever? Let's help each other out. What do y'all do for a stress reliever? You go to the gym, right? That's one. You go to the gym, you work out. What are some other ways that you can make yourself healthy mentally? Read your Bible. Listen to worship music. I'm going to be honest. About a week ago, I had a buddy ask me yesterday, he's like, did you hear what was on the news? And I could honestly say, nope. Not at all. I have turned it off. I can't do it. Cannot do it anymore. My brain, I walked around angry at everything because there's so many people arguing and fighting. So what are some other ways you can help with your mental state to get to a healthy spot? How about date nights? You can hang out with your spouse. How about play in the yard with your kids? There's all kind of things we can do from physical. How about get some sleep? Get some sleep. How about turn this thing off? Right? The things that stress you out, remove them from your life, but don't just remove them. Fill them with something positive, right? Whether that be physical or whether that be mental. And then on this, we have a question. It says, on a scale of 1 to 10, how charged are your batteries right now? How charged would you say your spiritual batteries are right now? How much in the Word? How much worship? How much healthy relationships are you around? On a scale of 1 to 10, answer it. On a scale of 1 to 10, physically, how charged are your batteries right now? Are you exhausted? Are you tired? Are you wore down? Emotionally. And here's the danger of emotional unhealth. If you don't have the capacity, if you don't have the room in your life to handle stressful situations, you know where that's going to splatter on? Now, I did not ask my wife if I could tell this story because it just recently happened. Rodney's like, don't do it, but I'm going to do it anyway. Yeah, she could be. She's not. She's already heard me 3 times today. So, Friday night, my wife's making some potato soup. Homemade. Yummy, right? I hate potato soup, but I eat it because I love her. She gets in there. She does the thing with the potatoes, cubes them up, gets the heavy whipping cream, does all, from scratch. She puts it in a pressure cooker thing, right? The Instapot. Instapot. And she's really frustrated because it took longer to make, and it's past 6 now, and then it goes a little bit past 7, and she hit the wrong button on the Instapot, and instead of setting the timer for 30 minutes, she set it to come on in like 30 minutes. And so she came back 30 minutes later thinking it was done and it was just starting. And so she's frustrated, right? And she gets in there and she finally gets it started. And you know, we're kind of joking around about it. You know, I've walked in there a couple times and I'm like, man, it's a good thing I'm, you know, we're not waiting on potato soup to live. And don't ever do that, by the way. And so she's getting frustrated. Well, about that time, she thought, if I just open it a couple of minutes early. Yeah, buddy. That joker. So I'm standing there, my son's sitting across the counter from her with her laptop computer. We've got a couple of cell phones laying on the... She popped the Instapot. I don't know what it does, but it got a lot of pressure. One, I'm lucky that she didn't just third-degree burn herself. But we had potato soup on the ceiling, on the cabinets, on the laptops that now don't work, on the cell phones that got fried. We had potato soup at however many degrees it was. But that's not to make fun. That's to say, a lot of times a relationship when we're unhealthy and we have no capacity, when something happens and we get impatient or we get frustrated or we get anxious or we get scared, right? If we're not doing the things that make us healthy and we have no room, we have no margin, what happens? We explode. And that splatter goes where? On our spouse, on our kids, on the people that we love the most. And it looks like a potato soup disaster. And it can damage things that are very valuable. So we got to get to a place where we stay healthy emotionally, relationally. The number one way you're going to stay healthy relationally is time. Spending quality time with your spouse. Write that down. Spend quality time. Quality time is not looking at each other's phones. Quality time is spending time together. And then it asks this question: what can you do to recharge spiritually? What can you do to recharge emotionally, physically, and relationally? Write down some ideas. So here's your homework this week. Go and do these things. Go and do these things. Turn off the talk radio. Turn off the news. Turn off the Facebook if it's bothering you. Turn on the worship music. Turn on your favorite jam. Turn on your favorite podcast. Put healthy into your mind. Emotionally, physically, go for a walk. Go sit in a tree stand. Go fishing. I don't know. Whatever your happy place is. I use this example all the time, and it's probably so not appropriate. But there's a movie called Happy Gilmore. Anybody ever seen it? It's a hilariously dumb movie with Adam Sandler. And Adam Sandler is a hockey player, and his coach is Apollo Creed. I don't actually know the guy's name. But Apollo keeps telling Happy, he's like, go to your happy place, right? Go to your happy, and his was inappropriate. But the gist of it remains the same. Where is your happy place? Where is the one place that you can relax? Like for me, it used to be riding horses. I could get on a horse, and I could go for hours, and it just clears my mind. Now it's sitting in a tree stand, and I won't even shoot anything. But you know what I get to do in the tree stand? I get to get quiet, and I get to get still. For some, it's a bass boat. For some, it's a gym. For some, it's a find a place to get into your happy place. And then my next one, it has 4 blanks you need to fill out. Identify some negative emotions you have as a result of being drained. What are some negativity that comes out in your life when you're drained? What is some negativity that comes out in your world when you're frustrated, when you're anxious, when you're scared? Because that is when we find out whether we're healthy or not, right? How do you handle stress? How do you handle frustration? Does it come out loudly? Does it come out sarcastically? Does it splatter on your loved ones? Identify some negative emotions that you have when you get tired. And here's the blanks. Negativity is exhausting, it's contagious, and it's a cancer. Negativity is exhausting, and it's contagious, and it's a cancer. You want to change the atmosphere of your house? Be positive. Be positive. We're going to get to this in a minute with kids, but the average person hears 20 to 1 negative statements. You can't listen to 20 to 1 negative and remain positive very long. Cut out the negative. And if you're the negative, here's what I call the sandwich. And we're going to talk about this with your kids. For every negative comment you make, you need to have 2 positive ones around it. Think about that for a second. It's hard to be negative when you're saying positive things. You ever thought about that? We're so quick to find the wrong. We're so quick to find the negative. And I could be around negative people. I can listen to talk radio, and I can walk in, and I'm just like, rah, 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 rah. And I'm not even like, I don't even know why. Like, I hadn't had a bad day, but I get around negative people, and it can change my emotions. It can change my emotions. And so be really careful when it comes to negativity. So when it comes to your spouse, a good rule of thumb, for every negative comment, you need to surround it with 2 positive ones. What you're going to find is that's really difficult. You know why? Because we're prone to be negative. We live in a negative culture. We look for things to be negative about. We're surrounded by negativity all day long. It is our culture these days. And so you're going to find that it's really actually kind of difficult to be positive. But for every negative statement you make to your spouse, have 2 positive ones. And can I offer a little tidbit suggestion? The first words out of your mouth when your spouse walks into the situation should not be negative. And this is what often happens. And let's say you've been home with the kids all day, right? Kids have been acting a fool. Things have not gone right. The potato soup ain't working. The electricity went out. Dog did something stupid, chewed up your shoe. Kids are just acting crazy, right? Your spouse walks in, and this could be either way. Your spouse walks in. What is the tendency to do? Unload. Like, tag, you're it. You know what they did? And then you just unload, right? Because you've been working up on that all day long. Well, the problem with that is you create an atmosphere the second your spouse walks into the situation. You've created that atmosphere. Because if the average person, when they walk in and they're hit with negativity, what is your initial reaction? To get defensive. Is to get defensive, or is to get protective, or it's to get loud, right? Bah, 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 bah. More often than not, you're going to bark back, or you're going to bark at your kids, or you're going to be loud. I call it the 15-minute rule. Allow your spouse 15 minutes when they walk into the door before you make a negative comment. And what you're going to find is that's going to be difficult too. Because far too often, we've built up all day all of the things that have gone wrong. When your spouse walks in, give them 15 minutes. Let them set their stuff down. Let them catch a breath. Sit down. And then have the conversation. But that first 15 minutes will change the atmosphere dramatically. What areas of your life are you allowing negativity? This is a mirror moment. What areas of your life are you negative about? Are you negative about the virus? Are you negative about the election? Are you negative about your kids? Are you negative about your workplace? Are you negative about your church? Are you negative about where you're at in life right now? What areas are you allowing negativity into your life? Fill in those blanks. And then here's a question when it comes to being negative to your spouse. Here's the question of all questions. Is it wrong or is it different? Is it wrong or is it different? I use laundry as ours. What is it in yours? Is the way they put dishes in the dishwasher wrong, or is it different? Because everybody knows that forks should go down, not up. All of you who do it wrong, you need Jesus. And here's why. Because I don't want your nasty hands touching what I'm going to stick in my mouth in a little while. Right? See, some of y'all are arguing about this right now. It's great, isn't it? But here's what happens. Here's what happens. You walk in, and your spouse has just done the dishes. They've spent however much time it took. They cleaned up the kitchen. They put all the dishes in the dishwasher. And then you, hey, that's wrong. Is it wrong? Or is it different? For the people that don't know how to put toilet paper on the toilet roll. Right? Everybody knows it goes under. See? Hey, U.S. patent does say it goes over. In our house, it does neither. It sits on top. It's just straight up. It sits right there. I mean, like, I don't even know why we have a roller. You know why we have a roller? For something to sit on it. That's why we have a roller. And my sons have a garbage can right beside it. And the brown part of the toilet paper, the cardboard part, it falls right there. Not in the trash can, apparently. Right? So what happens with somebody that, okay, so here's my wife's pet peeve. We have a Keurig at home. Okay? I put the Keurig pod in, and I drink about 5 in the morning. And I take a Keurig pod, and I do it. I drink my cup of coffee, and when I go back to put the next one in, you know, I make fun of my sons because they won't throw the cardboard roll part into the trash can, which is sitting less than a foot away. You know what I do with my Keurig pods? I set them on the counter above where the trash can pulls out at. I don't actually put them in the trash can. Drives my wife insane. Now I actually make smiley faces with them because it drives her insane. We kind of kid around about it now. But let me ask you a question. Is that wrong or is it different? Yeah, see, some of y'all, that's wrong, right? Well, let me ask you this. What about this question? So let's say your spouse asks you to do something, and you say, yeah, babe, I'll do it. Hey, I need you to go fold that laundry. All right, I'll get it done. Does it need to be done right that second? What if you do it 3 hours later? Is it wrong or is it different? I said I would get it done. You didn't give me a time frame. I might do it 6 hours from now. I might do it tomorrow morning. Is it wrong or is it different? Whose time frame are you working on? Hers. Good answer. That's why you need to be, it's called communication. Hey, honey, can you do the laundry in the next 30 minutes? I'm probably going to say no. It's not on my timeline. No, I'm just kidding. But see, that's the difference, right? That's the difference in taking a negative situation and turning it positive. So you got to ask yourself this question. How many arguments really matter? I mean, ultimately, how many arguments do we have in a day as a spouse that really, truly matter? That are right and wrong, put a flag on the mountain. I'm going to fight this to the core. You need me to come live in your house? I don't think you'd want that. How many things are wrong and how many things are different? I believe all the button-up shirts in my closet should be hanging the same direction. All the buttons need to go the same direction, right? My wife just hangs them up. She does the laundry, she irons, she hangs them up. What would it do to her if I walk in and start griping about what she did? She spent time to do something for me, and I want to have an argument about which way my clothes are hanging, right? Do y'all see? We could go down example after example after example. You have to ask yourself this question. Is it wrong or is it different? Should all the lines of the vacuum cleaner go the same direction? That's just crazy to go opposite directions. Makes your carpet look funny, right? You would be shocked in counseling how many of these arguments that I hear. And I ask this question, is it wrong or is it different? See, they're arguing in the back. Y'all are basically married anyway, so there you go. Yes, ma'am. Why does it bother you, though? Is that wrong? Okay, let me ask you this question. Why does it bother you? Just close the door. Just close the door. For those of you watching online, we're discussing the metrics of toilet seats and closet doors right now. But let me ask you this, is it worth the argument? Oh, man. A healthy me would say, you know what, babe, if this really bothers you that much, I'll put the pods in the trash can, I'll close the closet door. But ultimately, it should not be an argument. It should not be a source of negativity. It should not be a big splatter. In communication and in health of a marriage, ask yourself this question. Is it wrong or is it different? Pet peeves are not always wrong. Like I said, I can go back to the laundry. Somebody just posted something on Facebook with a wad of clothes, and they said, I thought about you, Scott. And I'm like, oh, that drives me nuts. But it's the way she was raised. I mean, and there's nothing wrong with that. She's a great mom that does 400 loads of laundry. But what I had to learn at some point was that I folded the laundry. You may have to shut the closet door. Just walk by, just close it. Keep on going. Ask yourself the question, is it wrong or is it different? And so here's you an exercise. When y'all go home this week, I want you to write these down. What are things that you and your spouse disagree on? Closet doors will be number one. Laundry, forks, toilet paper. You would be surprised. What are some things that y'all just disagree on? Right? And then on the line to the right of it, I want you to write, is it wrong or is it different? And let me kind of define that. Not everything is wrong. He straight up elbowed him. Not everything can be wrong, right? If you're not willing to put a flag in the ground, like there's some things that are just wrong, guys. I mean, there is. Yes, sir. Do I mind if my wife has laundry on the dryer while it's going? I don't care. I don't care. I just want it laid out where it's not a wrinkle bomb. But see, here's what's true. Okay, here's what's true. We all have pet peeves. Tell me what some of your pet peeves are. Laundry on the dryer. Don't like it. Closet doors open. Don't like it. What are some pet peeves? McKinley, what's a pet peeve? I'm going to see how many arguments I can create tonight. A what? Toothpaste in the sink. When they leave toothpaste in the sink. Yeah. And Gary just got Pentecostal on us. Yes! Lids on stuff. If you take a lid off, put it back on. That makes sense. You know. What's pet peeve? Quit leaving your crap all over my counter. Washing everything together in one. No, it's cool. They got buttons now that say mix. That means you can put it all in there. No? You don't do laundry. If you turn everything pink the first time, they'll never ask you to do it again. What would you say your biggest pet peeve is? Never wanted to make the bed. You're just going to get back in it, right? You know what my wife literally does now? She makes her side. She does, straight up. I walk in, and she has got the covers and her pillows, and then there's mine. It's like, sleep time's over, bro. What's your pet peeve? Got to be one. Doesn't know how to rest. There's times you can just sit, right? You sit and do nothing. There you go. What would you say your biggest pet peeve is? Sweeping. Lack of? Too much of? I had to replace the tile for too much sweeping. That's what I like. Christmas present, Roomba. Let it go. What's your biggest pet peeve? Other than the closet door. It's just a closet door. You're like, no, really, that's it. Just close all doors. My wife can't stand it when my kids leave the cabinet doors open. Yeah, absolutely. What's your biggest pet peeve? I know y'all aren't married yet, but you got to have a pet peeve. I'm helping you out, Jackson. I know you don't live together, but you still got pet peeves. Good answer in church. He what? He coughs all the time. I feel like there's nothing he can do about that. Oh, he clears his throat too much. Jackson, stop breathing. Seriously, dude. He has to cough. Clear his throat. No, you don't. Jackson, what's your biggest pet peeve since you're no longer allowed to cough in life? He's what? Oh, yeah. I'm glad Jesus is going to do your wedding. You got a pet peeve. What is it? Safe answer. Rodney? You're struggling. You're her pet peeve in general, right? That's great. You got to have pet peeve. Toilet lids should be shut. You know, if you left it open, it's always ready. It's a lid. Yeah, Morgan, what's your pet peeve other than Rodney in general? Gulping. You cough and you gulp. Don't make noise when you swallow. Yeah. Yeah. Do you have an issue when you hear people chewing? Smacking? Cereal? Yeah. How about when they drink coffee and go, sensitive ears? It's a pet peeve. I've got a lot of openings next week for marriage counseling for all you. Yeah. Lingering phone calls. See? We're finding out all of us have a lot more pet peeves. When the conversation's over, hang up, be done. Shopping. Like, I believe all phone conversations should last under 1 minute. Under 1 minute, which is why I text. Yeah, exactly. What's yours? You have too many. Give me your top one. One of your top three. That you won't linger on the phone. Perfect. Huh. He doesn't want to talk to me. 40 times. Shh. I'm kidding. What's yours? Leaving the lights on. I've heard that one before. Leaving all the lights on. You what? All right. The dryer. Leaving clothes on the dryer. The dryer. There you go. You know what I've heard about all of these pet peeves? They don't matter. I know they matter to you. But is it worth an argument in a marriage? Is it worth having a bad night? Is it worth being upset? Is it worth the mental capacity that it would take to argue about these things? And the answer is probably no. So we go back to, is it wrong or is it just different? So here's some disagreements. Write down wrong or different and then show it to your spouse. Now, the next one's going to be a big deal. I'm going to tell you what, this next one is a huge deal in marriage counseling. It is a massive deal in marriage counseling. And it's this right here. It's called record keeping. It's called record keeping. The lie. They owe me. They owe me, and I will never get over it. We spend a lifetime of relationships collecting baggage, right? Many of us come into a relationship with baggage. We've had ex-boyfriends, girlfriends, ex-husbands, ex-wives. Somebody's hurt us, right? So we bring a lot of baggage into relationships as it is. And oftentimes we view some things that our spouses do through the lens of somebody else. Right? It's not fair to them, but it's just human nature, right? But what about within your own marriage? As you continue to move forward in a marriage, what you will continue to do is you'll continue to kind of get wounded, I guess would be. It's a death by 1,000 paper cuts kind of deal. But more often than not, one of the number one things that I deal with in marriage counseling is people are bringing up stuff that happened 20 years ago, 10 years ago. And you know what I hear from the other one? I thought we dealt with that. I thought that was over. Can't you just let it go? Those are some of the most common statements I hear in marriage counseling. And so that's why I wanted to spend some time on this today. The lie, they owe me. Keeping record of wrongs, right? And we talked about when it came to sex. Sex is never a punishment or a reward, right? Well, how many times do we hold something continually over the head of our spouse as leverage? As leverage. You owe me. I'll never get over it. Jesus often told people, your sins are forgiving. What a statement. What a statement. What if in our marriage we were able to forgive like Jesus forgave? What would our marriages look like? What would our marriages look like? See, I look at a marriage like a chalkboard and a whiteboard. Y'all remember the old school chalkboards, right? They always look really clean and pretty when you first get them. And then what happens? You write on chalk and you get that eraser. And what ends up happening? It never becomes as clean as it originally was. There's always residue, right? There's always that white kind of film on it. You know what I love about whiteboard? I hate chalkboards. You know what I love about whiteboards? Is you could totally erase what was on it. And they even make this spray. And you can make it just as new as when you first got it. Is your marriage a chalkboard or is your marriage a whiteboard? Are you willing to forgive and forget? Some of you might say, well, I can never forget that. Are you willing to forgive and give them a clean slate and not bring it up? What does the Bible say about how God forgives? He says, I cast it as far as the east is from the west, right? What if we did that with our spouses? You know what? You hurt me, but we dealt with it. We fought about it. We came to a conclusion about it. And now we're going to move forward and we're going to cast it as far as the east is from the west. Does that statement make any sense? How far is the east from the west? Basically what it means is it's eternal. It's infinity. You can't get there. If you go that way east and you go that way west in a straight line, you'll never get it to the end, right? That's the way forgiveness in your marriage should look. Total. Not, I'm going to forgive you until the next time we argue and then I'm going to bring it up. Not, I'm going to forgive you and then down the road when you hurt me, I'm going to attack you with what you did way back then that I lied to you about and said I had forgiven you. As far as the east is from the west. Matthew 6, 14 and 15. And this is the verse that I really like. Of all verses in the Bible, this is probably the biggest gut punch verse for me. If you forgive those who sin against you, your heavenly Father will forgive you. But if you refuse to forgive others, your Father will not forgive your sins. Now let's think about that for a second. Let's think about that for a second in the context of marriage. So if we look at this verse, and I take Scripture literally, right? I'm a literalist. This came out of Jesus' mouth. This wasn't like some apostle. This wasn't like some dude in the Old Testament. This right here is coming from the Father. I think Jesus knows God better than anybody. Wouldn't you agree? And so this is the standard. This right here is the standard of marriage when it comes to forgiveness. If we look at it from a spiritual health perspective, and we look at it from a spiritual marriage, if you forgive, God's going to forgive you the way that you forgive your spouse. So let me ask you this question. How many sins have you not had forgiven because you haven't forgiven your spouse? It's a gut punch. It's a gut punch. So what does forgiveness mean? One, forgiveness is powerful. You know what's crazy about marriage? We'll let coworkers, we'll let buddies, we'll let people hurt us and forgive them far faster than we'll forgive our spouse. The one that we do life with, the one that we're going to spend our entire life with, the one that we've come into a covenant with God Himself. We are more apt to forgive people around us than we are our spouse. Forgiveness is powerful in a marriage. I'm not saying don't argue about it. I'm not saying don't fight. We talked about communication. You learn how to fight fair. But even within that fight, if you've totally forgiven, you know what you're not going to do? Keep bringing it back up. As far as the east is from the west. You may remember it. It may still hurt a little. But the difference is bringing it back up. Forgiveness is powerful. Unforgiveness can also be powerful. Unforgiveness is a cancer. And it will continue to be. Anybody ever gotten a thorn underneath? You didn't really know about it. And it started to kind of get infected, right? And it got worse, and it got worse, and it got worse. And eventually the blister pops and you realize, if I could just remove that thorn, it would all be good. And it was just a little bitty thorn. You have a little briar patch thorn in you that could turn into an abscess. That's the way unforgiveness is. It could be something that you choose not to even talk about. It could be the lid of a toilet seat. Right? It could be a pet peeve. It could be something that they said that they didn't even realize they said, but you took on an offense. The problem with an offense is you build a fence between you and your spouse. And every time you put a new plank in your fence, the fence grows bigger. And before long, you've walled yourself away from your spouse. That's what offense is. That's what unforgiveness is. That's what bitterness is. You have to be able to forgive your spouse. The one that you're the closest to, the one that you're in covenant with the most, should be the number one person that you're able to forgive. But far too often, it is not. Unforgiveness is powerful. When we refuse to forgive those who have wronged us, we hurt ourselves. Have y'all ever heard the analogy that unforgiveness is like pouring gasoline on yourself, lighting yourself on fire and hoping they burn? So often, we have unforgiveness in our lives and we're walking around bitter and we're hurting the person that hurt us doesn't even realize they hurt us. Far too often, we're walking around in bitterness and unforgiveness of somebody who's dead now, right? But we're walking around with that because it just accumulates. Baggage accumulates. So in a marriage, how can we get rid of that baggage? Lewis Smedes actually said this: forgiving is the only way to be fair to yourself. Would it be fair to you that the person who hurt you once goes on hurting you the rest of your life? When you refuse to forgive, you're giving the person who walloped you once the privilege of hurting you over and over in your memory. You know what forgiving somebody does? It gives you control. Because as long as you walk around with unforgiveness, as long as you walk around with bitterness, you don't have control over your emotions. It's the same way in a marriage. If you're walking around with bitterness and you're walking around with unforgiveness and you're walking around with resentment, and here's how you know. Some of you may say, well, I don't have that. Let me ask you something. When you argue, do you only argue about the thing that you're talking about, or are you arguing about the thing that happened 10 years ago? Are you bringing up the past? If you're bringing up the past, your relationship is on a chalkboard. And you've got residue. You've got unresolved residue. That before you can truly move forward and that intimacy happens, before two hearts, intimacy, beating as one with Christ in the center, you have to lay down those hurts. And so this is a really hard exercise right here. And this is one that you and your spouse need to have a conversation about. And I'm not going to ask you in here. I need to forgive, and there's 6 blanks. I want you to ask yourself this question. In your marriage, what do you need to forgive? And here's my challenge to you. Once you write it down, that is the one topic you're not allowed to bring up again. Ever. Because you're going to put it on the whiteboard. Far too often in counseling do I hear, well, you know what they did to me? Babe, that was like 10 years ago. You know what it is? It's an unresolved thorn. It's unforgiveness. It's bitterness. And what that does is bitterness, unresolved bitterness is a cancer, and left unchecked can actually be the death of a marriage. I've seen it happen too many times. And you know what part of the problem of unforgiveness is? You've never communicated your hurt. Far too often, your spouse has hurt you. You've never communicated. You kind of held it in. You never communicated it. They don't even know what's going on until the Instapot explodes. and it explodes all over the place. And far too often, it's harder to clean up the mess at the end when it would have been far simpler to clean it up at the beginning, because there would have been less of a mess. And if you continually forgive, chances of big messes are a lot less. You know what forgiveness is? It's continual. Well, how do I forgive? For some people, it may be every day. But forgiveness is a choice. It's a choice that only you can make. But it's a choice that might be the most healthy thing for your family. I got 15 minutes. We're going to jump into parenting real quick. It's what I call defense. Everything we've been talking about is offense. Let's talk about defense, and it's all about parenting. All about parenting. And here's what I know. When it comes to parenting, everybody has their own way. Right? My job is not going to be to stand up here and tell you how to parent your kid. I'm going to give you biblical principles. And if you think that you know how to parent your kid and you're the expert on parenting kids, have a second one. Because it will change. Every kid is different. There is not a textbook, and I will say this with authority. There is not a textbook that has all the answers on parenting. But there are massively biblical principles of parenting that can help us move forward as parents. I'm not an expert on parenting. I don't preach on it much. I have 5 children. You know what? Every time I think I got one figured out, the other one shows up. They're different. They have different personalities. They have different temperaments. I can look at my son and I can scream until my lungs are done. It won't faze him at all. I can look at my 9-year-old and bark one little word and blah! Right? Some I need to spank. Some I just need to correct. Some I need to constantly uplift. Some are good to go with just a little bit of, hey, way to go. Some need that positive encouragement constantly. Each kid is different. You know why? Because each person is different. God created them all with differences. So what works with one may not work with the other. So I'm going to kind of give you principles of parenting and let you guys figure out. Our job is not to raise great kids. Your job is not to raise a great kid. And I know y'all are like, that makes no sense. Your job is to raise a great adult. Your job is not to raise a great kid. You know why? Because kids aren't going to be kids forever. Kids are eventually going to turn into an adult, and we want kids to be productive, contributing, great adults. And when you look at it that way, it changes the perspective of parenting. And it changes it in a dramatic way. Because why am I wanting to have a great kid? Because it's a reflection on me. Right? I don't want y'all to see my kids acting a fool. You know why? Because that's a reflection on me. But if I'm raising great adults, I'm trying to teach them. There's a huge thing, we're going to talk about this in a little bit, behavior modification versus parenting. And they're two totally different things. God is the architect for our lives. From conception to eternity, God has a plan for each of us. God has a plan for your child. And His plan may be different than yours. God's plan for your child may not be for him to play Major League Baseball. Maybe God's plan for your child is for them to be a great musician and not throw a curveball. Would you love your child any less? We have so many expectations of our kids, but what if our expectations don't line up with God's? Are you willing to trust God with your kid? God provided David with an influencer named Nathan to open his eyes to what he had done wrong spiritually with Bathsheba. God gave David somebody that opened his eyes, right? And so as parents, we need people around us that will allow us to open our eyes on some of the things that as parents we do wrong. I bark way too much. I was too long in the military. I'm quick to bark. And that's on me. I have worked really hard to be slow to speak. And that's really hard for me. right? Because I want to fix. I'm a fixer. I want to fix my kid's problem. There was a little kid that bowed up yesterday at the skating rink. I wanted to drop kick him halfway across the roller rink. But that's me. That's my... But I have to surround myself with people that say, hey, you know what? You're out of line with your kids. Right? You're out of line with your kids. When I'm coaching sports, I need people around me to say, hey, is it really about winning the game, or is it about your kid looking at you acting like a jackwagon? Are you teaching your kid sportsmanship, or are you teaching your kid how to treat an umpire? Which in turn is actually teaching them how to treat people. You need somebody in your life, if you've got kids, that will call you out on how you talk to your spouse. Because can I tell you something? Dads, you know what your son's gonna do when he gets older? He's gonna treat his wife. You know how he's gonna treat his wife? You know how he's gonna talk to his wife? The way that you talk to yours. Moms, you know how your daughter's gonna treat their husbands? The way that you treat yours. We're going to model their relationships in the future. And they're watching. So we've got to surround ourselves with people the way that King David did. People that can help us open our eyes. Because I'm going to tell you, you don't have all the answers for parenting. You just don't. You're going to hit seasons that you have no idea what to do. Here's some counseling situations. Your daughter walks in and says, I'm pregnant. I was in 7th grade. My sister walked in. Southern Baptist Church. Everybody knows everybody. Dad's chairman of the deacons. Uncle, pastor. Small town USA. Cows outpopulate the people, right? And this was before MTV had 16 and pregnant. What do you do? All of a sudden, all of your parenting manuals are out the door. What do you do when your son brings home that one girl that you can't stand, that everybody knows about? Right? That girl. What do you do when your child walks in an interracial relationship? Changes the dynamics, don't it? As a parent. It changes the dynamics. There are all kind of things growing up as your kids move forward in life that you're going to run into that there is no manual for, right? There's not. I've got a teenage daughter. She started dating. I thought I had it all figured out. I can't stand dating. I've got a young son who's in 9th grade that's got a girlfriend. I can't stand any of that because I know what I did. And I pray to God they don't follow after me. But it changes. The dynamics change. So what we've got to do is we've got to surround ourselves with wisdom. Surround yourself with people who have been through those situations. Josiah was positively influenced as a young child. That influence helped him remain committed to God when he became king. He was positively influenced. The Bible doesn't say raise up perfect children. It doesn't. What does the Bible say that how we should raise our kids? Raise up your child in the way of the Lord, and when they get old. See, everybody skips over that part. Raise up a child in the way of the Lord, and they won't depart from it. That's not what the Bible says. The Bible actually says, raise up a child in the way of the Lord, and when they get old. Even God knew there would be a time that people are going to go out and they're going to find their own way. We all did it in some way or another, right? I did it. I was a prodigal. Some aren't as bad. Some aren't as difficult. But your child is going to go out and find their own way. Your child is going to challenge your religious beliefs. Or at least question them. Your child may go out and get off to college and decide, I'm going to change religions. I see that a lot. Right? And you know what I caution parents? I'm like, don't make a big deal of it. Because if you raise them up in the way of the Lord, when they get older, they will not depart. They always circle back around. But our goal is not to raise great kids. Our goal is to raise great adults. And then I asked this question: what are you doing in parenting that has short-term effect versus long-term learning? This is the difference in raising a child to be a great kid versus a great adult. What are some things that you're doing that has short-term benefits, but is not really long-term teaching? Right? So I use this example a lot. We yell at our kids in public for the things that they do at home that we laugh at. We do. My kids can be rolling vegetable cans around and popping each other with wet towels, the little pop game. But let us get up into Walmart and them start jacking around. Stop doing that. They're confused. We just did it 30 minutes ago. Well, why? Why am I yelling at them? Because I want them to look like a great kid, because it's a reflection on me. That's short term. Long-term teaching is in the car before we pull up to church going, hey guys, we're about to walk into a public place. Let's act like we've left the house before. We want to be respectful. I don't take my kids to weddings because it's like setting them up for failure. It's like, hey, y'all want to go to a wedding? You want a spanking today? Let's go to a wedding. Right? But what a good parent would do is I would teach my kids there's a time and a place, right? Instead of barking because they're making me look bad, I should be teaching them that there's a time and a place for pop each other in the butt game, right? There's a time and a place to be funny. There's a time and a place to take it too far, right? And so that's the difference in short term and long term. And then I asked this question: who are the most positive influencers of your life? Who were the most positive influencers? For me, I had a youth pastor. His name's Randy Overstreet. I had a coach, Coach Johnson. I've had people throughout my life that when I look back on, they really guided me. I had a college roommate, Kerry Martin. Huge influencers in my life. Probably the biggest influence in my life were my parents. But we have influences all throughout life. What are some good things that they taught you that you can pass on to your children? What are the things that they taught you that have remained in adulthood? That's the way that we teach children long term. We're not raising great kids, we're raising great adults. We want the things that we impart to our children to be able to last a lifetime. We parent the way we were parented. Remember when I said earlier we were going to talk about this a little bit? At the end of the day, we often parent the way we were parented. I think a lot of times we hope to bring the best of what our parents did and kind of set aside the things that might have scarred us or whatever. But ultimately, we wind up parenting the way that our parents did. And you know what your kids are going to do when they get older? You know how they're going to parent? The way you parent. What you do leaves a legacy to future family. You're teaching your children how to love and parent your future grandchildren. Think about that for a second. Think about that for a second. And so I asked you some of these questions. What are some positive things that your parents did? Like for me, that's easy. My parents were at all my ball games. And looking back on it, I realize now how difficult that really was. My dad worked at Goodyear. He worked shift work. And I realized some of the things that he had to sacrifice to be at the ball game. But that's a positive. I always remember my parents cheering me on. What are some positive things that your parents did? And then on the other side, what are some negative things that your parents did? What are some things that you might realize that your parents did were negative, and when you look in the mirror, you go, oh no, I'm doing the same thing? What are some things that we might need to lay aside in our parenting that had long-term negative effects? There are 3 ways that you can drastically change the outcome of your child's life. And I'll end on this. And it's the difference in being a contributor and a consumer. There's 3 things that will drastically change the outcome of your child's life. Again, I'm not teaching you how to parent. I'm giving you biblical principles. And here's 3 things that will change. Guaranteed they will change the outcome of your child's life. The first is time. The first is time. A contributor says, I'm going to spend a lot of time with them for their benefit. A consumer says, I'm going to use it for my own gain. I'm going to take them and I'm going to wear them out on the basketball court because I want to be the parent that has the kid who starts every game. That's a consumer mentality. A contributor says, I'm going to go out to the basketball court and shoot ball with them because I want to spend quality time with my son. See the difference? There's a huge difference. Is it for me or is it for them? But time is a huge thing. The amount of time you spend early in your child's life will be massively beneficial later. Number 2 is attention. Attention. Undivided attention. Not your kid walking in and you looking at your phone while you're talking to him going, yeah. Not your kid walking into your office or walking into your yard when you're busy and you going, yeah, you know what? I don't have time for this right now. You really have time for it. You're just doing something that you'd rather be doing. Attention to your child. Looking your child in the eye when they're talking to you. If it's important to them, it's becoming important to you. And the third thing is loving. It's loving. Not a transactional relationship, but a loving relationship. And we would all say, of course, we love our children. But do you have a loving relationship? Do your children know that you love them? Not, well, they should know that I love them because I pay the bills. That's transactional. Well, of course my kids know that I love them. Right? I bought them something. That's transactional. But true love is affection. Do your kids know that you love them? Do you tell your children that you love them? Well, in counseling, I hear it's called daddy issues all the time. I hate that terminology. But what it ultimately boils down to, I don't know how many grown men I have heard say, you know what? I never heard my dad say I love you. And you want to talk about a drastic change in life long term. Do your kids know that you love them by your actions, by your words, by your affection? 3 of the largest things in parenting: time, attention, and loving. I got lucky. I had parents that were all 3 of these, and my hope is that I'm that way to my kids. And so look in the mirror and ask yourself, are these things that I do for my kids? We're going to finish right there. Next week, we're going to jump into the difference in encourager versus discourager. We're going to talk about the words that come out of our mouth with our children. Those are going to be massive. An influencer versus a distractor. And then we're going to talk about respect and the different types of parenting. And you're going to get a chance to kind of view your own parenting and see which kind of parenting. And I will tell you, there is one specific kind of parenting that works far better than any other. And we're going to jump into that next week. Cool? All right, let's go get our kids before they kill us in kids ministry. God, I just want to say thanks. Thank you for children. Thank you for parents. God, I thank you every day for my parents because they taught me how to parent in a godly way. God, I pray as we move forward in parenting, as we move forward in our relationships, that God, one, we could see the positive, that we could see our spouse the way that you see them. God, I pray that we see our kids the way that you see them. God, I pray that the words that come out of our mouth reflect your heart, that we can be spiritual leaders, that we can be mentors, and that we can be phenomenal parents and husbands and wives. But God, we thank you for the grace on the days that we're not. And God, I pray that you can continue to overflow us so that we can provide that same grace to our spouse, so that we can provide that same grace to our children. Because it's a covenant between us and you. And we thank you for marriage. We thank you for children. And we give you all the glory. In Jesus' name, amen. All right. Next week will be virtual because I know a lot of people are going to be on the road. Thanksgiving's Thursday. So I'll put it online. The week after that, we'll meet here. Same bat time, same bat channel. Cool? All right.